Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 143, featuring the top 5 DS9 Guilty Pleasure Episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we have another special show. We are doing our top 5 DS9 Guilty Pleasure Episodes, which is the 5th and final Guilty Pleasure topic we've done for our 5 Legacy series. So we've previously done TOS, TNG, Voyager, and Enterprise, of course. And tonight we're doing Deep Space, 9 Guilty Pleasure episodes. So I'm pretty excited about this one. And we recently concluded our series of underrated episodes for the 5 Legacy series. And so tonight we're finishing up the Guilty Pleasure series. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to finish up the high concept series for the Legacy shows. So pretty cool that we're wrapping all those up here before our 150th episode. Okay, we are traveling into the Denorius Belt tonight and stepping on to Terok Nor. We have 3 awesome first-time guests tonight. All first-timers, which I absolutely love. So first up, she is awesome, and I've been trying to get her scheduled for a while. She left us a great voicemail. I can't even remember what episode that was. I was going to look that up, Ellie, but I forgot.
It was,
anyway,
top 5 fights.
Top 5 fight scenes. I love that one. Coming to us from the Denver Norius Belt in the Bajor sector, it's Ellie. Ellie, welcome.
It's a straight up honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. This is awesome.
I am thrilled to have you on finally, and likewise, the second and third guests are one half and the other half of the Divine Treasury podcast over at the Trek Geeks Network. And they're both here. And it's Jamie Rogers and it's Mike Bovia, who's also Legacy Trek with his wonderful daughter, Emily. So, Mike and Jamie, are you there?
Yes, we are.
Oh, yes, we are out here.
That was the cleanest double introduction in the history of TrekRanks.
Coming in loud and clear from Rhode Island.
Yes, I forgot to introduce the sector. Are you guys both in Rhode Island?
Yes,
Jamie
we
is
are.
10 minutes from me.
Holy crap. I don't think we ever had the...
How about the USS Rhode Island with Harry
That's
Kim?
what I was going to say.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic introduction. So we are going to do our Trek origin story quickly for all 3 of our first-time guests tonight. So Ellie, give us your backstory. What's your favorite Trek? Have you seen it all? How'd you get introduced to it?
Well, sorry about this, Jim. I'm the same age as the next generation, so it's always just kind of existed somewhere in my life. Of course, once Netflix showed up, I decided I should watch all of them. And then when we got married, my wife was like, we should watch all of them again. So we did that because it turns out she was a huge nerd, but just no one had ever told her. So I was like, hey, here's Star Trek. And she's like, this is the best. And so now we hit like 1 or 2 cons a year, and it's just a part of our lives. So, yeah, I have definitely seen all of them several times. Through the community, actually made good friends with a trans woman, and that started my direct tumble down into realizing that I was trans. So it's Star Trek has just kind of been there for all of the big revelations and all the little ones too. So it's great.
So what's your favorite series today?
Oh, it's Lower Decks.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
It's references within references within references. There's a visual language of authority based on what size and color drinks the people have in the bar.
Amazing.
They're doing it on purpose for crazy people like me to find, and I love it. It's
truly perfect. I always say the thing about Lower Decks, when it first came out, I thought 22 minutes, man, I'm going to be like, that's not fulfilling. It's so fulfilling. I don't want them to be a second longer. I can barely handle the 23 minutes.
Yeah, it's like a punk album. It doesn't need to be longer.
Exactly. Yeah.
And And it's perfect because season 3, they're doing Deep Space Nine, and we're doing Deep Space Nine today.
I love it. And this will be coming out a couple weeks, I think, before that episode. Okay, here we go. Jamie, how about you, man? What's your backstory? And
I'm gonna try to do this quick, but it's hard. Family, we were very close to growing up, me and my brother. They were huge Star Trek fans. They meticulously recorded every episode and had summaries on the VHS tapes and built their own tridimensional chess sets. But they were a huge influence on us. And, so my brother and I begged my mom to let us start watching Star Trek because that's what that family did. So my first foray was my mom going to the library and getting the motion picture. And I was just so blown away by the motion picture. I saw the Klingons in the intro, was blown away. Saw the ship in dry dock and thought it was real, and I just immediately fell in love with Spock and thought he was awesome. So, my mom would get library tapes of the original series or, tapes at yard sales. So I saw like the same 4 or 5 episodes over and over and over again, Galileo 7, Shore Leave, Arena, Corbomite Maneuver. So I fell in love with those episodes, saw the first few movies, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock. And then I remember getting a VHS tape of The Voyage Home, and I saw at the beginning of the tape a preview for Encounter at Farpoint. So we went back to our friends and said, "Hey, what's this new show that's being shown on this tape here?" And they said, "Oh, that's what's airing on TV." So the first episode I ever saw live of TNG was Future Imperfect. So I was hooked on TNG at that point. And I actually remember drawing a picture of the scene on the bridge with the Ferengi at the helm station. And I actually put Spock in the picture and I put for a title, Star Trek The Next Generation. And my brother was like, "Wait a second, you can't put Star Trek The Next Generation. Spock's in there." Little did he know that Spock was going to be in TNG like a few months later. So, so that was my story, is how I started. I fell in love with TNG at that point, got all the Playmates figures, got the bridge, got the transporter, was hooked, love collecting, so I've seen everything. I'm a completionist, but I'm very, my comfort food is TNG and the original series movies, because that's what I grew up on. That's how I started. And, I collect everything from TNG and the classic movies.
I love that you have your like direct starting point for both, for all of Trek with the motion picture, having your mom rent it and then discovering that first TNG episode, Future Imperfect. Love that. Very cool. Okay, Mike, it's down to you. What's your backstory?
Well, I guess you're going to love this one, too, because I know exactly when as well.
I'm so jealous of people that can do that. I have no idea what mine was.
I think the year was actually 1985, because Star Trek II it had its network television premiere. So I was watching TV with my dad, and the local station thought it would be a good idea to put Space Seed on before they put Wrath of Khan on. So pretty good thinking there for them.
Great idea.
I know. But that kind of pulled me in, and I was really young. So the thing that stood out to me was I fell asleep and woke up with Spock dying. And like that was burned into my brain for so long. But I mean, so 85, that was kind of the jumping off point. You had 3 and 4 coming out right around there, and then Next Gen a few years later. So I've been hooked ever since. My father is a big Star Trek fan. He was with me in Vegas a couple weeks ago, as was my daughter, as you mentioned. So we carry on 3 generations, going back and forth to conventions and picking up loot.
I love that. I've met your father a couple of times too at conventions. That's cool.
That's right, because he was with us in Chicago too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, at least a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay, so today, what's your favorite series?
Whatever one is on the TV when I turn it on. I mean, I would say my go-to like comfort food is probably TNG, just because that was, I watched first run episode 1 through All Good Things.
Can't wait to kind of hear how all that translates to your DS9 Guilty Pleasure Episodes for everyone. Okay, going to be a great show. Let's get through our quick TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
Regular listeners will know by now, general order number one of the TrekRanks charters that we love Trek and love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just our excuse to talk about Star Trek.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? But a celebration of differences.
And as T'Pol and Dr. Phlox just said, TrekRanks is basically just a big old celebration of differences. There are no wrong answers at TrekRanks. Not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things we love about Trek, and we love it all from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through 855 episodes of Star Trek, which currently means the second episode of the third season of Star Trek Lower Decks, The Least Dangerous Game.
Have boosted power to the communications bandwidth.
We appreciate that, Mr. Kim, and you can find TrekRanks on Subspace at TrekRanks.com. You can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra, and you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, Ellie, let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace, and tell everybody about your awesome gifts at Subrote.
Oh yeah, I'm on Twitter at Subrote Gifs, SUBROTEGIFS, and I've also got a whole bunch of stuff in whatever GIF keyboard for whatever app you're using, mostly on Tenor. So if you search, Subrote Star Trek, you're gonna get a bunch of my stuff. I try to post a new GIF at least once a day on weekdays, and then purely out of deference to Will Wheaton on the weekends, I post GIFs. So
I love it. Okay, that was funny. Jamie, how about you, man?
On Twitter, I am at JMROG84, and also our show handle is at divine_treasury for the Divine Treasury.
Perfect. And Mike?
I am at Trek Legacy. That is my account for both me and the young one.
Yes, fantastic. Both those podcasts are great, and let's get into our level 1 diagnostic to get into this show.
Run a level 1 diagnostic series. Come.
So here we are. It's our last Guilty Pleasure episode for our Legacy series. We've done TOS, TNG, Voyager, and Enterprise. Tonight we're doing Deep Space Nine. So as always, just a quick reset to define what we mean by guilty pleasure. Obviously, no one ever truly feels guilty watching any episode of Star Trek. We love them all, but there are those episodes that are out there that maybe aren't exactly top 10 quality. People sometimes make fun of them, or for whatever reason, they have a bit of a reputation. So no guilt here. That's it. Let's get into our Prime Directive, because I really want to hear how everyone broke down their lists.
But what you're proposing is exactly the kind of tampering the Prime Directive prohibits.
Okay, Ellie, we're going to start with you. How did you define your Prime Directive?
I basically Paul Stubbs'd it, where I just kind of sat down and went through all of them in my head. Yeah. And if I got to one that made me smile and then cringe a little, that went on the list. So just ones where I went, oh yeah, no, I like it. So very, very scientific, very specific.
I already love just the Paul Stubbs.
Me too. I was going to say that.
Excellent. A great way to do it. That is the tried and true TrekRanks system. Just think about them in your head. Jamie, how about you?
This is a tough topic for me because I love all of Trek, and I try to avoid negative talk about episodes. So sometimes it's hard for me to distinguish which ones are derided and whatever. But I kind of look at these episodes as they might not necessarily have a good story, so to speak, but there's something in the episode, some element that kind of just hits me right, where makes me fall in love with them, and it's not necessarily the best story. So for me, it was important that I select 5 different seasons, so pick an episode from 5 different seasons. So that was kind of important in my selection process. And I also kind of looked at the 2 of my favorite things from Deep Space Nine. I wanted to kind of incorporate at least one of them in every choice, and that is Quark, who's my favorite character in Deep Space Nine. I love episodes centered around Quark. And then my other favorite thing from Deep Space Nine is that baseball is incorporated throughout the show. So a lot of my picks are kind of either centered around Quark or baseball. And I like baseball because it has such a rich history. And I just love how they kind of weave that history throughout the show. And it just makes me happy every time I see it in Deep Space Nine. So those are kind of my major things, but I also like episodes that make me laugh. So if it's kind of a derided episode, but it makes me laugh, that kind of falls in that category too.
Well, first off, you're in the right place for not talking negative about Star Trek. I love that.
Right?
Yeah, and a lot of criteria, man. That's fantastic. So different seasons, Quark, baseball, I love this. Mike, how about you, man?
Well, I'm wondering who the guy is that you just talked to, because I did 10 episodes of Discovering Trek Picard with him, and I remember some negativity spewing from his mouth. So
what, Jamie?
Hold on.
Okay.
Shots fired.
I needed to be that because Mike Thurlow was so positive about it. You know, it was an up and down season. I had my good moments.
But it was awesome. Go ahead, Mike.
Anyway, so I was not very scientific about it. I cheated quite a bit, which is okay on TrekRanks. I looked at the ratings that were put on IMDb by viewers.
Oh, I love that.
Mm.
So I looked at every episode and took into account anything that fell below a 7, which if I equated it to school grades was D or lower. So if it hit that criteria, I looked at every single one of those episodes to see if it was something that I enjoyed watching, and most of them were, but I picked out my 5. So
I'm dying. That's going to be great. I'm pretty sure, I hope I got this right, and apologies if I don't to whoever did it. I'm pretty sure that's the Thad hate system.
It may be.
I'm pretty sure he did that on his one of the first Guilty Pleasure episodes.
That sounds about right. That's
that's
pretty
right.
Thad.
Good old Thad.
I've never gotten any awards for original thinking, so.
Okay, well, listen, it's a great way to do it, and it makes it fun, because then sometimes you'll listen to an episode and be like, holy shit, that's under 7 on IMDb? That's crazy. Okay, for me, yeah, this was tough. I think I realized there's a reason I've been waiting to do Deep Space Nine last for Guilty Pleasures, because it's my favorite series. And I'm like, I don't really have any. I mean, I love all these episodes, and it's just hard for me every other series I can kind of quickly gel on a few episodes. This one, man, I really had to dig deep. Yeah, I mean, I was struggling to find episodes I could honestly say I didn't think were good enough. And that's kind of usually my criteria, knowing that deep down, I know people kind of give it a hard time and that I don't think that it's good enough. So it could be an episode everybody hates, but if I think it's really good, then I usually don't include it in my guilty pleasures. It's one that I get it. I get why people would talk down about it, but there's things about it that I love. So that's where I was able to find 5. I found 5. Got a couple of secondary systems. So yeah, but as we always say, there's no guilt here. We love all this. Deep Space Nine especially. So this is going to be awesome. We're going to have 20 fantastic picks, and I'm sure we'll have some duplicates. Okay, first Cadet Catan, introduce us to the new order of things.
It'll be alphas like us that determine the future of this quadrant. That will be the new order of things.
Thank you, First Cadet Catan. As always, a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our Deep Space Nine Guilty Pleasure episode and the reasons we're highlighting it. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedo. Okay, Ellie, we're starting with you. What's your number 5 pick for your Deep Space Nine Guilty Pleasure episodes?
All right, my Deep Space Nine Guilty Pleasure number 5 is going to be season 6, episode 7. You Are Cordially Invited. 5 words: traditional red leather boob window, and hashtag gonna kill Worf. So I love that the Klingons are just so incredibly extra at like every moment. Like I think there's actually a line in like a Star Trek Online or a book somewhere where the Herc got erased from history, and so the Klingons didn't get uplifted, and they found them a peaceful race of farmers and epic poets.
Where did you see that?
I don't remember. I think it might have been Star Trek Online, or it might have been because they have that whole thing where they keep trying to go back in time to fix the thing, and we know that doesn't happen. Yeah, and we kind of get an idea that Worf's super uptight imitation of Klingons might just be taken from like highborn stereotypes in literature. Like nobody actually talks or acts like that except, like super highborn, super haughty people. And I especially like this one because my stance on it has shifted since before I got married and after, where beforehand I was like, no, Dax, you do not step down and apologize to that woman. She is the worst. You just, go on and do whatever you want to do. And now as a married lady in her mid-30s with nieces and nephews and, people that I care about, I'm just like, you know what? It's not always worth the fight. Just go make nice. We all have to get along.
Damn, Sorella. Oh my God. She's amazing. Yeah, this episode, I mean, Sorella and Martok make it for me. I just love every scene, every interaction, the battle and the war with
he's just immediately a little kid rocking on his heels going
except that she let his Targ escape. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, no,
I hate her for that. That's unforgivable.
That is so not cool.
Oh my God, she's awful. But entertaining is all get out. And then you have all the Jadzia, the party and everything with Nog dancing.
Oh yeah,
plus the road to Halkaya. I mean,
I think Aaron came up with that dance.
Yeah, that's right. They needed him to kind of do something. And
that's like the canonical. That's the canonical Ferengi default dance.
Amazing, Jamie, Mike. Any take on "You Are Cordially Invited"?
Oh, I love the part, the Dax party. That's my favorite part of the episode. The fire hurler from Hawaii, and even the introduction of the episode where they have the flags unfurl. I always thought was kind of a cool scene, and seeing those flags out there, kind of symbolizing that, they were kind of unified at the moment during the war, was also kind of cool to me. But definitely my favorite part's that raucous scene.
I'll tell you what I love is up until this point, we see Martok as like this strong warrior. He fought a Jem'Hadar in prison and had his eye ripped out. And he just falls to his knees when Sorella gets there. You can tell who wears the pants in that family. Whatever she wants, he lets happen. I mean, this is the guy that's going to be the chancellor of the Empire, within a few episodes. But man, he is he's submissive to his wife. How about that?
That makes me wonder a minute about Zek and Martok both being kind of puppets of their wives. I wonder if the writers were trying to tell us something.
Well, I'll say this. So the actor who played Sorella, Shannon Cochran, she was on this panel in Vegas where it was like one of those like super deep cut panels with like 5 guest actors, and like 3 of them I didn't even recognize. I had to like Google who they played.
Wow.
Really deep cut characters. And I knew she had played a Maquis. She was like on the bridge of the Defiant with Riker in Defiant. I can't believe this is the same and she played Tellura at the beginning of Nemesis, the one who dropped the bomb.
Yes.
Oh,
that's where I remembered the name from.
Just the same actor played Sorella. That's crazy because Sorella is just such a big, broad, dynamic character.
Cool.
You! Leave her, or I'll cut your head off and hang it from my belt.
I'll take care of this. You weren't invited.
It is time for the Brain-on ritual.
I'm busy.
Busy acting like a Ryzian slut.
I'm only going to ask you to leave once.
You will come with me now and perform the Brain-on ritual to my satisfaction, or I will cancel your wedding. Torakdo! Ladies, please! Maktavor! Kashave!
Why is everyone standing around? That party's just getting started. Play something!
Okay. Jamie, what's your number 5 pick?
All right, so my number 5 pick, 5 words, Yankee Clippers record goes down. # birds on the promenade. It's the season 1 episode, If Wishes Were Horses.
Love it.
All
right.
Perfect guilty pleasure.
I love the fact that as derided as this episode is for its story, I once again, I'm going to go back to the baseball thing. Like, I love how they take baseball with its rich history of stats and records, and they kind of incorporate it into this Buck Buckeye character. I just love how they talk about him breaking DiMaggio's 56 game hitting streak. And like, my favorite scene in this episode is when, Buck Buckeye and Cisco, they're walking through the promenade and they're arguing about things that only two rabid baseball fans would argue about, like how many home runs you're hitting from the right side of the plate, things like that. That scene it does it for me. And I know the episode's, not very high on TrekRanks, but the whole baseball element, it does it for me.
Hey, something's got to be down there at the bottom. This is one of those ones I've grown to appreciate over the years. I remember at it's always had this weird tone, like they should be more freaked out that these aliens are there imitating everything. But the stuff the Buck Buckeye stuff's the best stuff. That's really, really good. The exchanges with between Cisco and Buck Buckeye, where he's said he could hear him cheering and things like that. It's just really, really good. The Bashir and Dak stuff is a little cringy.
Awful.
And then some of the Rumpelstiltskin stuff is actually really scary. It's like terrifying. This guy,
I know.
He's like really feels threatening. So it's a weird amalgamation, but the perfect guilty pleasure. I can see why you would pick it. I love it. Mike, Ellie, any comments?
This was actually a hard one for me to cut from my list. It's one of my honorable mentions for a lot of the same reasons that Jamie mentioned and that you mentioned, Jim. But I'm going to say I actually like the cringy stuff with Jadzia and Bashir. Not like for content. It just makes me laugh because you see what they were trying to make Julian into. And, as you continue with the series throughout the seasons, you see how different he actually becomes and how he matures. So from that standpoint, it's pretty funny to look at, but I like the Buck Buckeye stuff myself.
Ellie, any more comments?
If memory serves, it was Rumpelstiltskin because Cullum refused to do a leprechaun.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's good. That's good background.
And the London Kings, who Buck Buckeye played for, and I love that Buck Buckeye is actually shaped like a baseball player.
Yeah.
And London Kings got called out in the first episode of season 2 of Lower Decks, or when Rutherford and Tendi are at Cisco's, and they go, "Oh, we could take in a London Kings game."
Yes,
so they're still playing.
That's true.
I love it. They're back. Okay, Mike, what's your number 5 pick?
All right, my number 5 pick, 5 words: Jumanji on Deep Space Nine. # Al Moraine, third Shap.
Yeah.
Season 1, episode 9. Move along home. Now,
that didn't take long.
in case you were wondering, this scored a huge 5.8 on IMDb.
Almost passing.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you what, the first time I watched this, I was like, it's okay. And then as I watched it some more, I didn't care for it. But then going back and watching it with my daughter, I actually started to like it because it's a pretty good growth story for Quark. I mean, you do actually see that he is still a scoundrel, but in the end, he's just trying to save these people that have become his friends through the whole thing. But other than that, it is kind of stale in a lot of spots, but I can sit and watch it any day.
This is the classic. I'm pretty sure it came up on our episodes that feel like TOS, because it definitely feels like a TOS episode.
Very.
But it's just one of those ones that with time, you just get over all the shit that bothers you about it. And now it's just like, no, it's awesome. It's ours. We own this. It's the best. So people make fun of it like, yeah, but it's ours and it's Star Trek and we don't care anything you say about it. It's like, yep, that's what makes it awesome. So, I mean, everything about it, the Shaps, the Al Moraine, it has George Primmon in it. I love anytime George Primmon shows up, the security officer dork. And I always laugh that this one it was a story. I mean, this is like royalty story by Michael Piller directed by David Carson, who, they let direct a movie. So, I mean, this is, it's kind of amazing that this is what ended up. But I'm glad you said about Quark, because it is a good, Quark is always true to himself. And even in this one where he's learning, he's never not a scoundrel. So,
this one was actually one that I almost made my list. It was a tough one for me to cut because it has a great Quark-centric story of him getting himself into trouble and trying to find a way out of it, and then in the end pretending like he didn't do anything wrong, because once he realizes he got off the hook, so
yeah, Odo calls him out and he's like, "Oh, you were there when I said that." Oh shit.
Yeah. So it was a tough one for me to cut off my list for sure.
They made it! I won! I had full confidence in you, Commander. There wasn't a moment's doubt that you would prevail in this outrageous...
No, Quark. I'm afraid all your players were lost.
What? You mean we were never in any real danger?
It's only a game. Time to move along home.
Okay, this one might come up again. We'll see. I am going to my round 5 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Oh, we got a run on season 1 here. 5 words and a hashtag. What is it? A clock. Hashtag Kira versus Cisco. And it is season 1, episode 18, Dramatis Personae. I love this episode. I don't think a lot of people do. I wonder what it ranks on IMDb, but it's just the one where the whole crew is overtaken by some weird virus transmitted by a Klingon coming back from the Gamma Quadrant, and they're acting out this fight. And I just think it's a fun episode while also sometimes being super kind of awkward, and it's always a little bit off and hard to figure out what's happening, even to the point of kind of like understanding what's the point of it. I don't really know what it's trying to say, but I like it. I really like it. And the main reason is it's the first time we really get the classically unhinged Avery Brooks performance. He is just chewing the scenery with hard, direct, stilted delivery with impact of all his lines. And there's that scene where O'Brien's like suggesting they leave the station, and Brooks is just going from like really silently focusing on his clock to screaming to bring him a phaser so he can attack them, and then back down. Call me when we're ready. I mean, it's just amazing.
I want the name of every sympathizer.
That's not a good idea, sir. There's a lot more of them than there are of us. If we tip our hand, it might work against us.
What can we do?
Leave the station.
Never! Get me a phaser! I'll get rid of Kira!
Hear me out, sir. We leave the station, raise a Federation attack force, and return. And on that day, we'll get rid of all your enemies.
How do we proceed?
I need a few more hours to free up the Valerian ship. I've already talked to their captain. He's more than happy to take us back to Federation space.
Call me as soon as you're ready.
It's really great. I love that clock. I love that clock is on his desk for the rest of the series. It's just something about this episode that stands out to me. And by the way, it's a Joe Menosky. So Joe Menosky, man, he writes some wacky episodes, and this is another one. So Ellie, what's your take on Dramatis Personae?
Well, just first quick to answer your question, it's a solid 7.0 out of 10 on IMDb.
So it's right at the limit of where you couldn't rank this one, Mike.
It's right. It's right there. I just realized that Cisco's clock is like Picard's Resican flute. That's actually a recorder. Yeah, it's just like, hey, remember that time I had that weird trip for a week? Yeah, I'm going to put that in my office. That'll help the professional decorum in my.
Jamie, what's your take on Dramatis Personae?
It's definitely not one of my favorites for sure.
Of course, how could it be?
But I love the exchanges between Cisco and O'Brien. They just have these great scenes back and forth where they're going back and forth. And I like you said, Avery Brooks just knocks it out of the park for sure.
I'm telling you, people, go back and revisit it just for Avery Brooks. It's the first time you get that unhinged, just where you the other actors are like, oh my God, I gotta act against this guy. This guy's crazy. How does he do this? Oh, Mike.
Yeah, I actually enjoy this episode quite a bit. And
me too.
Yeah, because it hit 7.0, I couldn't in good faith keep it in my list. So but yeah, I mean, this is like you said, an awesome episode displaying the range of the actors, but it's really just a cool, like, how everyone gets totally screwed up and is like fighting against each other, though not really fighting. It's all a mental game.
Okay, let's go to round 4. Ellie, what do you got?
All right, round 4. I'm going to go with season 4, episode 20, The Muse. 5 words: hide and go shapeshift. Hashtag old ones pros. So I unapologetically love anything with Majel Barrett in it, because she's a delight. And while it's kind of cringe that like an immortal poetry old one seduces Jake in the background of like a super misogynistic kidnapping plot, but the Luxwada shenanigans are always good, and they're authentic when they're playing in Odo's in his little condo, and it's like, oh, these are people who actually like care about each other, and they can just care about each other. It doesn't need to be a great big romance or whatever. And of course, we get the awesome Trek rule of 3, where the poetry ghost rattles off like 3 people she had worked with, and one of them was like a known actual person.
Oh, right. Yes. Love that. We're going to incorporate that into TrekRanks at some point. Like,
nice.
Those kind of made up things. That's got to happen.
And then especially because we were kind of in a drought of LGBT representation at the time. That speech that Odo gives at the very end resonates with a lot of people that I know who are in the LGBT community, because you always remember that first person that like actually saw you, and you was just like, all right, fine, whatever. And you let out this massive breath, and oh my God, it's going to be okay. And you legit love that person, but Luxwana was smart enough to go that's not romantic love. That's not what she needs. He's not going to be, right, a father. He's going to be a fawner. So it even has like a solid ethical core, who they, brought back Michael Ansara for, which, fun fact, it was actually originally to me John Colicos for that role, but they thought he couldn't be.
Really?
I didn't know. This
that.
Is the one place in the world I could make that joke.
Okay. You got me. Okay. I was like, really?
No, because they did that for Day of the Dove.
Of course. You did. You flipped it. Now you really got me, and now I know what you're talking about.
Haha, got Moorhouse.
I love Michael Ansara, so that's why he's such a dynamic, interesting actor. So
he's intense. 2
comments. First, note the time, people, because the Muse just got mentioned and picked on TrekRanks for the first time in 143 episodes.
No way!
Oh, for sure. I was curious if this episode was going to get picked. And I will say, because it's definitely a doubt at the bottom for me on TrekRanks, the Odo speech is not just good, it's like all-time great Trek. It's really, really incredible performance, incredible writing, and it sells that whole storyline, which I'm not sure I was buying until that moment where I was like, yeah, I get it. This is really great stuff. So, Jamie, Mike, any comments on the Muse?
You know what I thought was interesting, that Majel Barrett Roddenberry got a story credit on this episode, actually, with Renee Echevarria. So I thought that was always kind of a cool thing about that episode.
She did?
She did. Yep. She got a story credit.
That's fantastic.
Go Majel.
He got the teleplay, but she did get a story.
Oh, that's so cool.
Got a story credit on it. This episode always creeped me out because I think the makeup that they did on that old woman, just like, she looks so scary to me. Like, it was like total creep factor going on. But not one of my favorites.
I mean, that part of the episode is also just feels like it's like writers writing about writing.
Yeah.
It's like a little too like, okay, you have writer's block, so this is the story you come up with about a writer being gifted. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to separate that kind of. It was a weird choice. Mike, the Muse.
Yeah, I really, really dislike this episode, except for the Odo and Loaxana stuff.
Yeah.
If you got rid of the A story of this one, this is a great episode. But you put this, like you said, this lousy writing story about writer's block in there, and that could have had less dedicated to it as a B story, but
well, it's a guilty pleasure for a reason. You love it.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Jamie, how about you? What's your number 4?
All right, so my number 4 pick, 5 words, underpaid Rom grows a set, # junior grade night shift. It's the season 4 episode Bar Association. And, I've heard people talk negatively about this episode because they're like, why is there a labor union discussion going on in Star Trek? So I've heard people make those comments before, but I love this episode. It cracks me up every time I watch it. What is better than, Rom standing up to his brother. And I think Max Grodensik and Armin Shimmerman are awesome in this one. I love the dialogue between Rom and Lita, where he's in sick bay and he's talking about his ear, and he's like, I'm getting too much umox. and Lita says, "Who's the lucky female?" "No female, just me." and when Lita says sorry, he's like, "Are you sorry enough to do something about it?" It just cracks me up every time I see it.
This is classic Trek, just proving they can tell any story. It's one of those ones that just gets better with time. I love it. Ellie, what's your take?
My absolute favorite part of this is it's the same as when people actually learn about unions, and Rom is like, "Oh wow, he did this and this and this," and O'Brien's like, "Yeah, they found him with 80 bullets in him."
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
Oh no, people died for this. This is important. I got no guilt over watching this episode. It's the Workers United can never be airlocked, Yeah,
I love it. My favorite part is at the end when Rom quits and takes a job.
Because he knows he can do it now.
I know. It's so great. It's so great. Mike, any quick take on Bar Association?
Yes, same thing. Not guilty for me. I love this episode, and Max Grodensik hits it out of the park on this one. But also, I just love how O'Brien is the one that explains the whole union thing to him, and like you said at the end, they found him with a bunch of bullets in him in the in the river.
Exactly. He had the biggest funeral in all of Western Pennsylvania.
Funeral?
They fished his body out of the Allegheny River a week before the strike ended. 32 bullets he had in him. Or was it 34?
No. He died a hero.
He was more than a hero. He was a union man.
Really good. All right, but a fair pick, because you're not wrong, Jamie. A lot of people dismiss this episode and don't rate it.
They can be wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, they can. Mike, what is your number 4 pick?
All right. My number 4 pick, 5 words. I like your new tailor. # I'm not Picard. Season 1, episode 5, Q-less.
Ooh, great pick.
So this landed a 6.7 on IMDb, and it's not one of the stronger Q stories, but there are a lot of good, funny parts, typical Q stuff that falls within it, especially as O'Brien has to explain to Sisko how Vosh and Q met and how they got together. But obviously the thing that stands out the most is the staged boxing match by Q in Quarks and Sisko hitting him. That in itself would put this on the list for me.
You hit me. Picard never hit me. I'm not Picard. Indeed not. You're much easier to provoke. How fortunate for me.
One of the things I think about now with this episode is that, hey, Picard never hit you, Q, but you hit Picard now. In Picard season 2. Yes, you did. Yeah, this is the perfect pick. What else can you say? It's like everyone knows it's not the best Q episode. It's not perfect. I love Vosh, so I love seeing her. But it's just one of those early episodes that's just kind of feeling its way and has a lot of good qualities. 25 years removed.
That's right. I forgot your Team Vosh. I forgot all about that.
Big Team Vosh guy. Do not forget that. Ellie, what's your take?
Oh, Team Vosh all the way. The part that always sticks in my mind about this one is when she's walking down the promenade and he's just like, remember that bug? Zap.
No, that's
remember
the worst part.
Because it's something that gets hand waved so much in Star Trek is that like interspecies bacteria and virus, like your body won't even necessarily recognize that as a foreign body that needs to be stopped, and it just starts mining you from the inside. Ugh. And we're just like, the transporters take care of it. Yeah, okay. What about the people on the shovels docking manually at Deep Space Nine? It's a TV show, all right, man. Like,
it's all good. I hate that visual. Poor Vosh.
Oh,
Jamie, any quick take on Q-less?
Yeah, it's weird because every time I watch this episode, I think of Encounter at Farpoint because of, the creature at the end. And it's hard for me not to think of Encounter at Farpoint when I see this episode. But I actually think there's some good Bashir moments, like the introduction when he's, talking about the tough fight, with the Bajoran female and stuff like that. But it's definitely reminds me of Encounter at Farpoint for some reason.
That's interesting. I never would have connected that. Okay, let's go to my round 4 pick. This one, man, everyone's just going to be like, what? Here we go. 5 words and a hashtag. Hide and seek with Fenna. Hashtag Sayatek is a cock. And it is Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 9, Second Sight. And first I'm just going to say, I hate people like this Professor Gideon Sayatek, just this arrogant, blowhard, just the worst kind of person. And he's the reason I originally just did not like this episode. And for years, I didn't like this episode. And recently, the last few years, I got to say I've softened on it. And now I call it a guilty pleasure because I really dig the moodiness. I'm going back to Cisco. Just the moodiness of Cisco kind of dealing with the appearances and disappearance of Fenna, who, by the way, is played by Sally Richardson, who's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. Amazing. She was in Eureka, if anybody watched that show. She was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, all their interaction, it's really interesting. It's an interesting little mystery. I've kind of gotten over the Sayatek part, even to the point where now I can say, his death is actually pretty cool. It's actually pretty great. He's saying all the right things, and the visuals and the effects when he says "Let there be light" as he crashes into the sun to terraform it and have it explode. It's pretty cool. So I've got to say, I actually have got a soft spot for Second Sight, guilty pleasure. Ellie, what's your take?
This is another one of those dramatic personal life perspective shifts where before I got married, I hated every single, they fell in love in one episode. Like, you need to get to know this person and blah, 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 blah. And then I met my wife and I was just like, oh, wait, no, okay, that happens. Like this one, please. And so, it's softened on me, but it also, I have a hard time like differentiating between the two of them. Like they're the same person, but they don't seem like they put enough difference between the two costumes that it's like, oh, this is someone else in a I don't know, magic psychic protection or whatever. But other than that, it's Let There Be Light is really good last words.
Quite a death. Jamie, Mike?
I mean, this is not one of my favorite episodes.
Just don't have to. Mike, anything?
I'm gonna channel my inner Bill Smith, and I'm gonna say, meh.
I know what this episode is. I get it. So
yeah. I don't hate it, and if it's on, I'm keeping it on. Just, I don't have strong feelings in either direction on it. That's all.
Sally Richardson. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, she's beautiful.
Here we go. Let's go to let's call it the Dabble round. We're doing Deep Space Nine, so it's the Dabble round. Let's do it. Number 3. What's your round 3 pick, Ellie?
Darn it. my soup round
okay,
pick
your
was
soup round pick.
season 3, episode 10, Fascination. 5 words, love is in the air, #pheromone soup.
Oh, fantastic. We'll do some soup too. We'll do both.
Are you going to put that in my soup?
Someone spilled soup on the dabble wheel. It'll be fine. I love and hate this episode because the O'Briens are a married couple written by single people.
Yes.
Like the entire thing is O'Brien like pining for the dating stages of like what Kira and Bareil got going on. And it's like that's not at all what you want. Like, you haven't seen your wife for months. You don't want to go to a crowded public place. You want to see each other. You want to see your child. But like they get off the shuttle, and Molly's sick, and then it cuts to in their condo, and Keiko is putting Molly down. Keiko, who's exhausted and probably been puked on a couple of times, is putting Molly down, and O'Brien is literally in a recliner with a mug of beer. Like that's what 20-something dude thinks 30-something married dude really, really wants. It's like,
I was gonna say, not only is it written by singles, it's written by single men that are like 20, 30 years old, like you were just saying.
Yeah. And then like the resolution of the Keiko O'Brien thing is like she capitulates to like go be his arm candy. Because, sex is the most important thing. And it's like, no, he'd be sitting on the bed next to his kid who doesn't feel good, because that's, a more important kind of intimacy. But you don't get that until later in life a lot.
Yeah. And you know what? If a married man sits in a recliner drinking beer while his wife is off taking care of the kids, his wife is going to be just like Keiko O'Brien.
This is an episode that I thought might come up. I wonder if it's the first time it's been picked. Mike, Jamie, what's your take?
I actually like the Kira and Jake stuff, believe it or not. I know it's like repeat, but like I don't know. It cracks me up when he's like offering her a Junja stick, whatever. Like I don't know. I get a kick out of it.
This episode I do struggle with. And Ellie, you have now chosen 2 straight episodes that have never been picked on TrekRanks.
Yes,
that's basically impossible. Holy crap!
And with what, like 48 hours notice?
Unbelievable. I would think it was 52 hours. 26-hour days. Okay, Jamie, what's your soup round, double round pick?
All right, my 5 words. I'm Quark, Slayer of Klingons. #enter husband. It's the season 3 episode, The House of Quark.
Oh man, this is one of my favorites.
I know. But like I said, I've heard people on both sides of the coin on this episode.
You're not wrong, and I'll tell you, it wasn't one of my favorites early on, but now it is. But yeah, keep going.
I think Armin Shimmerman is fantastic in this episode. His initial description of the fight while he's being interviewed by Odo is just worth the price of admission. And then little scenes like Grilka getting repulsed when she's kissing Quark is great. Gowron scenes are great. I laugh through the whole thing. It just, like I said, I know people can't stand this episode, but like I'm on the floor laughing the whole time.
Yeah, I know there are people that for some reason don't like this episode. And I'll be honest, like early on, I was kind of like, I don't know if I love this episode, because it's one of those, and I'm talking about early on, like 1994. This Ferengi episode doesn't really, but this is one of the funniest episodes of Trek. Armin Shimmerman's brilliant. I love Grilka. She's amazing. Mike, Ellie, any quick take?
I think something that we don't get, Armin Shimmerman's portrayal of Quark is repeatedly said to be like a good businessman, but we don't see that happen a lot. We see him fall on his face. But I think this is one of the episodes that proves he is actually a fantastic businessman, because he's able to understand the psychology of his client. So he out honors some Klingons in this one. He out logics a Vulcan who's in the Maquis. He's able to actually handle himself when thrown into this insane situation, not because he's big and strong, and not because he knows Klingon love songs, but because he's clever and quick. So it's like a The Hobbit, but in space.
Yeah, give me any episode with a Grilka and Quark story, and
yes.
I'm sitting for it.
Grilka's the absolute best.
I'm going to let you take your hand off my leg.
Oh yes, so good. All right, Mike, you have a run on season 1 episodes. What's your third round pick?
All right, so my third pick, 5 words: love on a high wire. # assisted independence. Season 2, episode 6, Melora.
Oh,
So this actually earned a 6.2 on IMDb, one of the lower ones on my list. And I've just always enjoyed this episode. Just from what we talked about before, the growth of Julian. And in this case, he's not being like a stalker. He's really trying to help Melora to adapt to things so that she can be more productive and be happy. And it naturally builds to this love story between the two of them. So, I'll watch this 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
Fantastic. I did not really think about this one. This is quintessential guilty pleasure, because not too many people are going to rate this episode that high. But it's a good episode, and I love Melora, Daphne Ashbrook. It's a great actor from that era.
Yeah.
Did a bunch of good stuff. Her brother, Dana Ashbrook, was in Twin Peaks. Anyway, I love it. This is a great deep cut pick that I did not think of, but I might have picked if I'd thought of it. Ellie, any take on Melora?
I do love that someone finally pointed out that Deep Space Nine is so not ADA compliant. And like not only that, but like the normal exoskeleton thing you wear won't work here. And it's like, well, it was built by fascists. They tend not to be too considerate, but yeah, we get Bashir being actually just kind. Like he's not after her. He's just trying to be a good person, and that's how those things end up happening. So it's beautiful, really.
Yeah. How about you, Jamie?
Yeah, I actually really like this episode. I think I agree with everything you guys have said. I think it's a great episode for Bashir, but I also like the B story with Quark, his life kind of being in danger, and him getting himself caught in some trouble as well. So I it's an episode I enjoy. I really enjoy watching.
Yeah, I do too, but I feel like it's a perfect guilty pleasure because no one's putting this. More people are going to rate this low than they are high. So good stuff. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Let's close out round 3. And we've gone through 3 rounds with no duplicates. So this is really interesting. Let's see if we go all the way. 5 words in a hashtag. Flame the dark true salt. Hashtag reset gleaming. It's Deep Space Nine Season 1 Babel. The episode with the aphasia virus and O'Brien and everybody on Deep Space Nine not being able to communicate and speak clearly. And this is actually a really good episode that I just think people kind of forget about. It's early Deep Space Nine. And I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, it's not great, but I kind of find myself going back to it a lot. It's a nice little mystery in figuring out how the virus started and was planted as sabotage, and first they think it's the Cardassians, but it ends up being like the Bajoran resistance that left it there as a kind of a booby trap. You get to see some Cardassian Jeffries tubes. I like this story by Naren Shankar and Ira Stephen Bear. So Ellie, what's your take on Babel?
Not only do I don't think this is a guilty episode. I actually used some of this episode in my wife and I do advocacy work for autistic adults. because she got diagnosed as autistic, and it turns out there's like no resources out there for adults. It's all for kids. So she's writing the book, and this is one of the examples we use for nonverbal communication, because some folks on the spectrum just have a real hard time making the words, and they're speaking eloquently in their heads and they're getting their point exactly across. It just somewhere between there and their mouth, aphasia hits. And so like the way that people still kind of communicate and get along in this episode is a teaching tool that we use for, corporate environments to be like, see, they still get along. You just got to be a little bit, more open. So I love this episode.
That's super cool. Yeah, I do too. And I think it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure because I think most people don't. But I will say when I first watched it, I was thinking like, this is dumb. This could never happen. And it kind of helped educate me on that, because I learned later, hearing about it, hearing people talk about it, reading about it, like, oh, that's kind of a real thing that people struggle with. Jamie, Mike, any thoughts?
I like this episode a lot too. And I kind of almost put it in that high concept episode because of them trying to kind of work together and, having this virus where they can't communicate. And I really appreciate this episode. And Ellie, your comments are spot on of, being able to use it practically, in a classroom type setting. But I think it's a great high concept episode.
That's actually a really good point. I just looked it up to see if anybody picked it for that, but they did not. So
yeah, I love what you were saying, Ellie, about using this as a teaching tool. Because there's so many different episodes of Star Trek out there that you can for different situations, but this one is so unique.
Yeah,
that it. I agree, Jim. Like, people aren't going to look at this and say, "Oh, that's top 10,"
right?
But you sit back and you watch it, and you're like, "Yeah, this is really good storytelling here."
And it's even got the nice world building thing where it's not a weird Cardassian thing. It was something in history that was meant to fight the Cardassians. Like it's
Right.
his leftover terrorist weapon, and like luckily one dude knows about it.
And that's one of the reasons I think it's great that you said that world building, and that's exactly what it is. That's what kind of drew me to it. So I love it. Okay, let's go to round 2. Ellie, what do you got?
I just realized I've been saying my hints backwards this entire time, but
I haven't noticed.
I kept saying the title, but 5 words. O'Brien bombs beautifully on Bajor. # missed pitch. And this is The Storyteller season 1, episode 13. First off, it's bad. Like it's a ridiculous episode, but a long time ago, way back in the before times, my wife and I were stand-up comedians. And the thing about being a comic is that it's really, really isolating. Like your work hours are weird and you travel all the time, and pretty much nobody but other comics understands your problems. And one of the little problems that happens is sometimes you bomb on stage. You just have a bad set.
Right.
And to most people, that concept is the most terrifying freaking thing. Like you're going to try and make an audience laugh for 45 minutes and you're just going to get disgruntled grunts and crossed arms. But once that's happened 3 or 4 times, it's just like a missed pitch. There's going to be another set tomorrow. It'll be fine. And so watching somebody just fall on their face on the stage is like watching somebody slip on a banana peel. Like, nobody's hurt, everybody's fine. But go to any open mic or little local comedy show and watch for somebody who's bombing, and you'll hear at least one person from the back of the room go, "Ha!" which is their best friend.
Yeah, fair enough. The Dalrock,
me.
The Dalrock does not like it when you're bombing like that. I thought for sure this was going to be another first time pick 3 in a row, but I'm happy to say it is not. I picked this top 5 hangout spots because it's where Jake and Nog were hanging out in the promenade when they literally were sitting hanging with their legs over the corner. So it's not a first time pick, but it's The Storyteller. This is iconic Star Trek. The crazy thing for me that I laugh about with this episode, which again, it's an episode of Star Trek, is that it doesn't really fit with what we know about Bajor.
Why is it on Bajor?
what we find out about Bajor. Like at that point, we don't really know about Bajor, but you watch this episode, you're thinking Bajor is a bunch of mystics and things, and there's like crazy shit happening.
Did they not have news? Did they not have BNN? Like there's this big magic storm cloud, and somebody's like, that's not a thing.
Yeah. If it was on another planet, it would make a lot more sense. But the fact that it's on Bajor is literally like, yeah, that's not a thing.
It should have been in the Gamma Quadrant, just some random thing we came across, tiny colony.
That is the wackiest thing about that episode. Jamie, Mike, any quick take on the storytelling?
Yeah, I think they were trying, obviously, we're in the first season, so they were trying really hard to bring that religious element, for Bajor into the, that they have this reverence for some supernatural thing, I thought
interesting. I didn't make that connection. I guess there's maybe some allusion.
It's that religious element of, revering something that's you think is supernatural. And, I appreciate the episode. I'll leave it at that.
And Mike, how about you?
It's an episode.
Guys, we're going along anyway, so let's just move along. Let's go. Episode.
I told you, no one else would get it.
No chance. Jamie, what's your number 2 pick?
All right, number 2, 5 words. Willie is worth the effort. And hashtag, aren't you forgetting something? It's the season 5 episode In the Cards.
Oh, that's a good pick. Someone looked this up on IMDb because now I'm really curious if it's eligible for Mike's list. But
I've heard people really deride this one because they thought it was a very contrived and stupid story.
Well,
but
it's got that interesting kind of weird tone where it's almost a farce.
Yeah,
in the middle of all this dramatic shit that's happening on.
But I love it. I'm a collector, and that the chase of finding that one item. That's a story after my own heart, and it's a baseball card, and I love baseball cards. I have a 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle rookie, so nice. It was so cool to see the 1951 Willie Mays on the pad and see the actual card. I know obviously they made a replica in actuality of that 51 Willie Mays, but it was still so cool to me, and I remember like the first time I saw this episode, I was like, I wanted so bad for like that card to be displayed right next to the ball in his office. That was like my whole thought process. And I just think Jeffrey Combs is great in this episode as well. As Wayoon, the interrogation scene. I love when he first comes on the station and his playful banter with Cisco. It's just, he's such a good actor. And I love this episode. I love it.
This episode's the perfect pick for you, Jamie. It's so good. I'm surprised it's not your number 1 now that I think about it, because the baseball, the Quark auction, there's so much good stuff in this episode, but it's got this weird tone, and so a lot of people don't rate it for sure.
Are you talking about the soulless minions of orthodoxy?
Exactly. I remember one of the things I remember about this one is that it's directed by Michael Dorn, which is interesting.
Nice. So I think it was his first directorial.
Yeah, he doesn't
directorial debut.
He doesn't direct a lot. And then the guy, the soulless minion guy, is Durst from Voyager's Faces, who loses his face. It's like Brian Atkinson or something. I can't remember the actor's name, but
I always think of him as not H. John Benjamin, because he's always H. John Benjamin in my head.
He looks like him. That's a good call.
Let me ask you both a simple question. Do you want to die?
No. Not really.
Of course you don't, so why should you? Why should any of us end up as putrefying corpses in wooden boxes stuck in the ground? Or vaporized into subatomic particles and vented into the cosmos like a bad case of gas? No reason that I can think of.
Ellie, Mike, any quick take?
I unabashedly love this. It's a necessary palate cleanser right before a whole lot of heavy happens.
Right. Yep.
And it's a nice, light little fun romp, and it seems crazy, but it's not actually all that out there. Like, the Dominion does do genetic engineering and immortality, and we get a nice nice nod to the fact that Deep Space Nine is not soundproofed at all. When Wayoon's listening to his floor and is like, what is down there? It's like, how do you get 400 kilos of scientific equipment into your quarters without anyone noticing. Oh well, it's Star Trek.
I love it. And you say it's a palate cleanser. I mean, it's like the perfect palate, because I'm pretty sure the episode right before this is Empok Nor.
Yeah, and everybody ends up happy at the end, except for Lita.
I think the one right after is Call to Arms, too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's right in the middle of all that. And then, it just rolls from there.
I had this in my brain before I started consulting IMDb.
Yeah.
It was higher, so it didn't make the list. But
okay.
if it had hit that, this probably would have been my number one.
Yeah, for sure. It's this is a great episode, but I think it fits the criteria. Okay, Mike, what's your number 2 pick?
All right, number 2 pick. 5 words, The Spy Who Loved Me. Hashtag get it, Odo. Season 5, episode 17, A Simple Investigation.
God, I'm so glad you picked this.
Unbelievably, this is a 6.6 on IMDb.
What?
But it is, yeah, exactly. That's why I had to pick it and put it up this high.
I'm so glad you did.
I mean, Arissa is a fantastic character. Just the confusion that's been programmed into her, and then at the end she realizes who she really is and that she's married, but doesn't hesitate to tell Odo that the person that he was dealing with when she was that other person did love him. So you see now Odo is capable of having a relationship, and it builds up toward what we know is going to happen with Kira too.
Okay, so this is on my list. I'll have these on secondary systems. It's on my list of episodes that I was thinking about picking, but in my heart, I was like, no, this episode's too good. I love this episode, even though I know it kind of fits most people's definition of a guilty pleasure. For me, I legitimately think this is a great episode. Super underrated. I think it's a great little mystery. I love the 2 henchmen. I think they're really, really clever and good. And any episode with Dae Young, I mean, I got a massive crush on her. She's in she was in Enterprise 2 Days and 2 Nights, and she was in Master
Hannah Bates.
Society.
Yep. Yeah, Hannah Bates.
Yep. I love it. It's a great pick. I really wanted to pick it. I really did not think there was a chance anyone would pick it, so I'm impressed, Mike, that you did. Jamie, what's your take?
Oh, I love this episode. I think the chemistry between Dae Young and Renee Augenbois is just phenomenal. And like I said, I think the storytelling in it is very deep and rich. And I just think it's great character growth for Odo. I love this episode.
Classic standalone episode. Ellie, what's your take?
This was on my short list because the episode literally starts on a dark and stormy night with Quark, a small-time thief, getting in over his head with a femme fatale.
Oh my God, I love that. It's exactly what it does. It feels like an old pulpy novel.
It is. It's a bad detective story, and I can see in my head Picard reading the Royale. It was a dark and stormy night, and he just puts the book down, looks to the side.
One of the great moments. So good.
It's like, yeah, Gumshoe Odo episode.
All right, superb. I can't believe this. We are almost through 2 rounds with no duplicates, and mine is not a duplicate. 5 words and a hashtag. I love this pick. I think people are going to be rolling their eyes at me, but I love this pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Sucker for Odo's spinning payoff. Hashtag TNG on Deep Space Nine. This is season 2, episode 16, Shadow Play.
Yes.
And I love this episode. It's just cute. It's quaint. And and I know for a fact, this is one of those last Deep Space Nine episodes that really is just a TNG episode that they kind of just moved over to Deep Space Nine while they were still figuring things out, coming up with scripts, because this could be clearly just a TNG episode of the week kind of thing. It's just a fun little mystery. This is the one where Odo and Dax find this village of people who are disappearing, and there's a mystery to be solved. It turns out they're holograms, except for one guy who's kind of living a life there. And there's this cute little girl, and she's looking for her mom, and Odo really takes to her, and he helps solve the mystery, and I love it. And the B story on this is really good too, with Kira and Bareil. Quark's trying to set up Kira and Bareil with some spring ball, and So they get distracted so he can get some crime on. And the ending is Odo with the spinning top, and I'm just an old softy. I'm a sucker. I love that moment. I think this is a fun, interesting episode. And I'll add one last note. The Rurigan, the old guy who's kind of keeping it going, is Kenneth Tobey, who was in The Thing from Another World. I'm a classic 1950s sci-fi fan. And when I found out it was the same actor a few years ago, I was like, oh man, that is so cool. Because I love The Thing from Another World. Shadowplay is my pick. Ellie, what's your take?
It just occurred to me that this is probably one of our first, hey, can holograms be sentient episodes?
Actually, good
which
point.
it was probably running about concurrently with Voyager, or maybe just right before, where we get the slow burn of the Doctor, and then of course we get Vic in Deep Space Nine later on, and it's like, yeah, no, he's a person.
Yeah, it really is a good point, because that's basically the decision they make by saying we're going to restore this and let you.
Yeah, you guys matter.
Keep living. Yeah, that's awesome. Jamie, how about you?
I almost want to echo all the things you said, things you said, Jim. But like the thing that really stuck out to me in this episode was that kind of that little speech that Odo does about, when he's talking about I think her name is Taya, right? Taya's. Where he's saying how like she's not real, like by our definition, she's not real.
Right.
And her memories are stored in a computer. But who's to say that our definition is the valid one? Like that speech that he does just really hits me hard in that episode.
Yeah, I'm glad you called that out. That's a great moment. Mike, any thoughts?
I just love the growth of Odo in this. We've always seen him as the curmudgeon up to this point, and even though he biologically doesn't have a heart, we see that he does have a heart.
Yep.
He can have a heart if he wants.
He's got a heart. Okay, we're going to round one. I cannot believe we have 4 people on this show, and we haven't had a duplicate on a Guilty Pleasure episode. This is amazing. Let's see what happens. Ellie, round one.
Begin round one.
Okay, one more first. 5 words: power imbalance, a love story, #hormones, and this is season 6, episode 23, Profit and Lace.
Oh my god! Well, that's nice, Ellie. I didn't even think about that. As obviously you having some very profound thoughts on this.
Yeah, so first it's power imbalance kind of grows through the entire thing, and the same thing that Quark tries to do to Allura happens to him, and there's the Pepe Le Pew kind of funny sexual assault, but that's not the important part. The important part is that this proves that there are trans people all over Star Trek, because an alien doctor was able to do a full transition in like an hour. Like plastic surgery, hormones, and everything. That's like 5-6 years for us. But he's just like, no, you're all right. This afternoon? Yeah, this afternoon is fine. You'll be up and walking. It's an outpatient. And it's at least convincing enough. So
no, they do transformative surgery on people all the time when they're doing alien disguises and things too, because that's not makeup. They're actually changing.
Yeah, and he had to be, convincing enough to expose himself, but herself.
You were correct. This is the first time Profit and Lace has been on Deep Space Nine. So 3 out of
guilty.
5, Ellie.
So guilty.
A brave choice for an episode that is definitely much maligned. Jamie, Mike, I know Jamie, you're the Quark fan, so let's hear it. You're gonna defend this, right?
I mean, not my favorite Quark episode, but I love Brunt in this episode. I will say,
good. Yes.
Jeffrey Combs,
so good.
I cannot say enough good things about Jeffrey Combs, but he kills it. He kills it in this episode. So,
Mike, how about you?
So this was a 5.8 according to IMDb.
Sounds about right.
But this is just a nice, funny tale, I think. So yeah, I would watch this. This is definitely a guilty pleasure episode by definition.
The nicest thing I could say about it is, and I mean this sincerely, I used to have it ranked dead last on TrekRanks. And then I realized, no, the Let He Who Is Without Sin is way worse than this. It's not even close because of what they did with Worf and that right-wing terrorist organization he joins for some reason in that episode. So, so I moved it up. So, this episode's been moved up in the rankings.
Well, and two last points. The parting shot about Quark feeling completely different and, empathetic with the hormone imbalance. As somebody intentionally on estrogen, yes, that actually is a thing.
That's amazing.
I have capital E emotions.
Yeah.
And it's great. And then the other thing was, if you notice that everybody is completely cool, like nobody's like, oh my God, how could you do such a thing? And blah, blah, blah. They're like, all right, this is a caper we got to pull. It's a thing you got to do. This is just a thing that we're used to. And then Rom being surprisingly femme isn't even like a dig. It's just like, it's a non sequitur. It's like, wait, yes. Rom knows grace and femininity since when? The only reaction he gets is his wife says, I love you, which is just lovely.
That's an awesome perspective, Ellie. So glad you picked that. That is fantastic and will help me see that episode in a different way, which is the whole reason we do TrekRanks. I love it. Jamie, how about you? What's your number one?
All right. So I think I probably cheated with this one, but to me, this episode is my guilty pleasure. And because I've heard people talk a lot of smack about this episode.
This is going to be like The Way of the Warrior or some shit.
Yeah.
This is gonna...
No.
All right, go ahead.
So, right. 5 words. Cisco and Vulcans are jerks.
Oh.
Hashtag we will destroy them. Season 7 episode, Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
You get special dispensation to pick this because this is obviously a very popular episode, but for you and your prime
it is, but I've heard,
I mean, you're right. There are people who just don't like fun episodes.
There are people that hate that this is like smack dab in the middle of season 7, in the middle of the Dominion War arc. I've heard
you're right.
Purists say that why is this episode here? So I obviously I know there are some people that like this, some people that don't. I don't care either way. To me, this is the ultimate representation of a guilty pleasure for me. I love the Vulcans beating the piss out of the crew. I love Odo as the umpire quoting baseball rules and rehearsing in his office and the uniforms. And I love how the actor who is the best baseball player, Max Grodensik, they made the worst baseball player.
Yeah, right. Made him bat lefty.
And, the joke being that the Ferengis couldn't play, but it was actually the actors who played the Ferengis were the best players in real life. So to me, this fits all my criteria of a guilty pleasure. And it's something I'll just put on and look at, and watch just in the abstract.
Perfect defense of this pick. And you're right, because I don't hang around with any of those people and I never hear their takes anymore, but there are people who are like, oh, it doesn't make sense to have this kind of farce in the middle of all the...
I know it's a cheat. I know it's a little bit of a stretch.
That's Star Trek. You need that. It's a mix of all different types of shows and genres. I love it. Mike, what's your take?
Death to the opposition. Love this episode so much so that I'm wearing the hat tonight.
The Niners. Ellie, any quick take?
Do not rush me.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you. I think part of this that we miss in the fun of this episode is it's a Plomeek soup stain on the wall where it's like, no, this Vulcan captain is super emotional and super invested in trying to humiliate Cisco to the point where he loses his rag at the he loses his temper at Odo and gets kicked out of the game.
Yep.
And at the end, they lost, but who cares? It was fun. It was a nice day in the sunshine, and Rom got to be a little bit of an accidental hero. Who doesn't love it?
It's so good, and you're so right. This is like one of the episodes I point to when people are complaining about Vulcans and Enterprise. It's like, have you seen Vulcans on Deep Space Nine? Other shows?
Oh, and he can't.
Always been this way.
When Nog can't figure out which one to tag.
Oh yeah, so good. The manufactured triumph. Here.
Manufactured triumph.
You are attempting to manufacture triumph where none exists.
I'd say he succeeded.
To manufactured triumph.
Manufactured triumph. Here.
Here, here.
Yes.
Okay, Mike, what's your number one pick?
Okay, number one pick. 5 words. The needs of the many. Hashtag from goat to hero. Season 6, episode 17. Wrongs darker than death or night.
Wow. Okay. Now
Shockingly,
this is fascinating.
6.8.
No.
6.8 on IMDb. Yeah. I don't understand why. You do.
Yeah, because it's
You'll need to enlighten me.
Okay, you go. I want to hear your take on why this is a guilty pleasure for you.
So I am a sucker for the thought of being able to go back in time and right a wrong, so to speak, which is what Kira's trying to do here. She wants to find out what happened with her mother, with Dukat. But at the same time, when she does find out, she's gonna take them both out. Yeah. And it's like a darker version of Tapestry to me, where she's trying to change something from her past, like Picard was. But in the end, they both realize that life is actually better with the way that things went down. She realizes that her mother really was a hero when she hears her talking to her father, and she's explaining, this is the only way that I could save you. And he praises her for her sacrifice. So, just such a overwhelming, tough story, but a great story as well.
That's fantastic. So I like this episode. I do, but it falls into that one of those categories for me where I understand the low rating, because this episode's hard for me to watch, because it is. I mean, the title is perfect because it is dark, and when you think about the things that Maru went through, and it's hard for me to enjoy it, and so it drops in my rankings. But I respect it, and I think it's really interesting for Kira, and obviously anytime we go back to Terok Nor and we see Gul Dukat doing his thing, and we see Kira fighting and doing her thing, and it's great to see her family. So all of that I think is great, but it's always a low rating for me because it's hard for me to watch and really escape into, and because it does such a good job. So that's the ultimate compliment. So it's fascinating to me that this is a guilty pleasure. I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool.
That's a fair point. And I think a lot of my stuff is, I like being captivated by the story.
Yes.
And,
exactly.
sometimes the guilty pleasure is, hey, I find it funny, so I'm going to watch it. But in this case, I'm just taken in by the story.
Of course. And there's episodes where, I love Siege, the Siege at AR 558 that's as dark as it gets too.
Right.
So
right.
There's always different levels and layers of that. Fascinating. Ellie, what's your take on Wrongs, Darker Than Death or Night?
First off, it solidifies Dukat as one of the most evil people in the world, because you call somebody up in the middle of the night to say you banged their mom, on their birthday. That's a weird, different kind of evil.
Oh man!
But no, I really like this one, because I think of this as part of Kira's PTSD arc, where the Kira we meet in season 1, episode 1 is a fighter. She is probably armed with more than just what you can see. And through Deep Space Nine, she learns to let go and relax, and the war isn't happening now. And this is one of those ones where she realizes that there's more than one way to fight. There's more than one kind of sacrifice.
Right.
Which actually makes me think of Kai Wynn saying that, which is some gross Star Trek empathy there. But, hey.
That's really well said, though. More than one way to fight. That's really good. Jamie, any take on this dark, twisted, nightmarish episode that lives in the back of my mind?
It actually would have been even darker. I know their original concept for this episode was for them to, talk about weird experiments on Bajoran children and stuff like that. So,
I don't know anything about that. Okay,
that was the original concept for the episode. Almost kind of like a World War II Nazi, concentration camp type situation.
Can I pretend I never heard that? That's awful.
No, but I love the character growth and development in this, especially that love. Well, there's never really not too much love, but that hate relationship between Dukat and Kira just continues to grow and expand. And I always think that's very interesting when they would explore that.
All right. Amazing. You guys killing it. These lists are incredible. And we are going to go through 20 picks without a single duplicate. I am blown away by that. Absolutely blown away. Here we go. My final pick, 5 words and a hashtag. Distracted, lovelorn Odo just can't. Hashtag with or without the belt. And it is Deep Space Nine season. This is by the exact opposite of your pick. Deep Space Nine season 4, episode 13, Crossfire. And this is the one pick where I was like really struggling with my own Prime Directive because I legitimately think this is a great episode. I think it's too good to be a guilty pleasure. But I know that people do not rate this episode. They think it's boring. They don't think anything really happens. They don't get it. People don't like Shakar. And I love everything about this episode. I love the slow burning pace. I love Shakar. Duncan Rieger, the actor, is really great. I love Shakar and Kira together. I love Odo's slow realization of what's happening right in front of his eyes as he's pining and kind of learning for the first time as he sees this happen. And I especially love, and I picked this as one of my top 5 Odo episodes, that Quark is the one that figures it all out. And as Quark always does, this is a great Quark episode. He doesn't miss a beat. He doesn't spare any words. He just gets right in Odo's face and says, I know exactly what's happening. Here's what's happening. You need to suck it up, make a choice, and live with your decision while also being empathetic and helping him in the way that Quark can. So I love this episode. I just think it's really, really underrated. And Renee Auberjonois and Armin Shimmerman kill it. Jamie, let's start with you since you're a Quark fan. What's your take? I think I echo exactly your words. Quark and Odo, those two actors in this episode. I mean, I think Renee did such a good job of showing the anguish and the pain as he's watching the situation play out. I think his acting, like through not even speaking, just his facial expressions with all that makeup on, was just absolutely incredible in this episode. I love it. Yep.
Yeah, I love how Odo has the temper tantrum in his quarters, and that's how Quark finds him. But you know, this is new territory for him, so yeah, he's gonna lash out over it.
Temper tantrum, to say the least. Ellie, how about you?
You know, Odo is kind of a teenager, and this is pretty much his first big heartbreak, and you know, it's like Guinan tells Wesley, like, oh, there's nothing, you just got to live through it. And specifically, I always have that image of Odo just like in his wrecked condo, just defeated, and he's got the 2 little strands of hair hanging down.
Yeah.
I heard Renee Auberjonois talk a few years ago before we tragically lost him, and that was a super deliberate choice on his behalf, because he saw a black and white photograph, a print of a defeated samurai, and that was like the one bit of chaos that showed you that he had just given up. Like, he's like, all right, whatever. And you got to think, if he's a changeling, that's not hair, that's just part of him. So that's like a slumped shoulders thing. He might not be doing that on purpose as a character.
That's
just sad
cool.
changeling.
Oh my god, that's a great little piece of background. I had no idea. I love that story. All right, well, amazing. I'm glad you guys connect with that one like I did. It's really good. Okay, we are going to get into our secondary systems here.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Ellie, how about you? What do you got on your secondary systems?
Well, we want to keep this short. We're running kind of long, and this was such an easy topic. I have so
so rattle them off.
No, I've got Little Green Men, Body Parts, and the Sword of Kailash.
Those are good. Yeah.
Yeah, just because they take themselves so seriously and they're so silly. And the body parts thing, like, how is there not a Ferengi law for that? Like, someone must have been misdiagnosed and tried to sell themselves. There's got to be, like, isn't that what the malpractice insurance is for? When Quark is like, I'm going to sue him.
They got like 280 laws of rules of acquisition. So
well, couldn't you just clone yourself? Just clone a bunch of skin, sell it. You know, it'll be fine.
I love it. Jamie, how about you? Any quick secondary systems?
Yeah, I had 5. Move Along Home.
Yeah.
A lot of things that Mike said. Little Green Men, obviously. Yeah. Another one that was good. Sons of Moog, I really like. I love Kern. Love Kern. Yeah. So that's a guilty pleasure for me. Profit and Loss. You know, I think that.
I thought about that too.
Oh, I love her. I think she's beautiful.
Yeah, she's
the best looking Cardassian I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, what's the character's name?
I forget.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
She is beautiful.
Great. She's fantastic. Yeah.
And then my last one, just to get under your skin, let he who is without sin.
No. Okay. All right. I love it. So good. And by the way, I'm so glad nobody picked Little Green Man, because it's a guilty pleasure.
It's a good episode.
And
I
it
couldn't,
fits,
yeah.
but it's too good. Everybody knows it's too good. It's just too good.
One day we'll be a part of a federation or an alliance in Rama. Federation.
One of the local nation states, like Australia or something.
I love that general is the same guy from the original series.
I can't believe
Wade to Eden. That is like so unbelievable to me.
It's incredible.
Don't be a Herbert.
We are. Hey,
doesn't Gabriel Bell look like?
I thought we were running along. There's just too much Trek to talk about. I love it. Mike, what do you got?
So I had the aforementioned If Wishes Were Horses. Yeah. I had Valiant, Field of Fire from season 7, and Meridian from season 3.
All great picks. Our friend Ida Quarks has made me appreciate Meridian in a new way over the last couple of years. So that's a really good pick. I love it. All right, I just have a few. Move Along Home was my toughest cut, so glad you picked that, Mike. I had The Forsaken, I think is underrated and kind of a little bit of a guilty pleasure. The Assignment, I think, is one that's kind of dark. But most people don't love it. Statistical Probabilities is a guilty pleasure for me. I know a lot of people have issues with that, some of the representation in that episode, but I do find it entertaining with the breakdown of the Dominion War stuff. And then on my list of too good to pick, and I'm glad only one of them showed up. It was In the Cards. And then Who Mourns for Morn, One Little Ship, and Business as Usual were all ones I thought about, but they're just too damn good to pick. Okay. Incredible. So many deep cuts. That'll be part of our stats here as we get into our regeneration cycle and recap our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Ellie, start with you. Rattle off your 5.
Number 5, we got season 6, episode 7, You Are Cordially Invited. Number 4, season 4, episode 20, The Muse. Number 3, season 3, episode 10, Fascination. Number 2,
The Down Rock.
Season 1, episode 13, The Storyteller. And finally, season 6, episode 23, Prophet and Lace came in as my really weird number 1.
I love it. You had 3 first-time picks in the history of TrekRanks. That is amazing. Jamie.
When do I get my trophy?
Rattle off your 5.
All right, number 5, season 1 episode, If Wishes Were Horses. Number 4 is the season 4 episode, Bar Association. Number 3 is the season 3 episode, The House of Quark. Number 2 is the season 5 episode, In the Cards. And number 1 is the season 7 episode, Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
Fantastic. Incredible. I'm going to break down all the seasons here when we get to our stats. Mike, how about you?
All right, number 5, season 1, episode 9, Move Along Home. Number 4, season 1, episode 5, Q-less. Number 3, season 2, episode 6, Melora. Number 2, season 5, episode 17, A Simple Investigation. Number 1, season 6, episode 17, Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night.
I shudder every time you say that title. It's amazing. Okay, my 5, season 1, Dramatis Personae. Number 4 pick was from season 2, Second Sight. My number 3 pick was from season 1, Babel. My number 2 was season 2, Shadow Play. And my number 1 guilty pleasure was from season 4, Crossfire. So the stat breakdown was to have our season breakdown. No duplicates, which is incredible. We did have 5 first-time picks. So Ellie had 3. I had 1 with Babel, and Mike had 1 with Melora. So that got to be the first time we've had 5 first-time picks, and since like maybe episode 20. And the season breakdown is kind of what you would expect. So it is really, we spread it around. Every season got a pick. Season 7 only had 1 episode. And then season 2, 4, and 6 each had 3. And season 3 and 5 each had 2. So really even from season 2 to 6. And season 1 led the way with 6 picks, which is, I think, not a surprise for anyone in terms of embracing those guilty pleasures. Fantastic job. But as we do every week, we've been hit by a temporal distortion. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The temporal distortions are fracturing space-time throughout the ship.
Of course.
Unknown.
Oh, we know the cause, Mr. Tuvok, all the amazing feedback we continue to receive from our listeners here at TrekRanks. And this week's temporal distortion has sent us back to episode 126, Characters That Fooled Ya. And we had a great list from TJ the Great at TJ the Greatest on Twitter. I love this pick. 5 words and a hashtags and picks. So he's got started their own little war, hashtag DMZ, and he has picked Commander Cal Hudson from the Maquis as a character that fooled you. That's perfect.
Ooh.
Absolutely fooled us. Hoping to meet a Klingon, hashtag telekinesis. Oh, it's Eris from the Jem'Hadar. She also fooled us.
Oh, yeah.
As did the Vorta, because they never had telekinesis after that. 5 words and a hashtag. He had, don't you read history, Soren? Hashtag Nexus. And that is Captain Kirk in Generations. That's a great pick showing up to take down Soren. Number 2, Warp Core Breach in Progress. Hashtag Scorched Hole. And it's the Enterprise crew faking a Warp Core breach in Shockwave 2, which is an awesome pick for characters that fooled you. And then his number 1, I love this. I'm not sure this came up in the episode, but it's Going to Bob Your Ears, hashtag Death Grip. And it's Spock's Vulcan Death Grip in the Enterprise incident. A classic moment and character that fooled you. Those picks, more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal distortion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. So keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 DS9 Guilty Pleasure episodes or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. Or you can just record it at home and then send me a link and we can do it that way if you don't want to leave a voicemail. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing, it's one of our live shows, and we already recorded this in Las Vegas. It was our top 5 Trek gambles. That's right. We were in Vegas, so we did, that was on our long list. We did top 5 Trek gambles. That one is in the books. Super fun topic. Lots of different ways to approach it. So Ellie, Jamie, and Mike, if you had to choose one Trek gamble off the top of your head, what would it be? Ellie.
Corbomite.
Corbomite, of course. That's as good as it gets. Jamie.
It's the gamble.
It's the gamble. Yeah, it's the defining Trek gamble.
I'm going to say TNG Booby Trap.
Yes, Booby Trap.
Ooh.
I like that. That's because that was on my secondary system. Spoiler alert. When Picard pilots the ship out of the asteroid field. Mike, what is your Trek gamble off the top of your head?
I'm thinking Where Silence Has Lease, where they set the self-destruct to go off, playing out against Nagilum.
Perfect pick. There's a lot of different ways to look at this, and I will say that somebody in this episode picked an episode and talked about a moment that I picked as one of my top 5 Trek gambles in the episode that's coming next week on TrekRanks. All right, looking forward to that. So before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to Ellie as well as Jamie Rogers and Mike Bovia. Awesome having you guys all on the show for the first time.
I was wondering if you could show me how to access these subspace communications logs.
We're going to do that right now, Mr. Neelix. So any final Trek subspace communications anyone wants to relay before we depart? Ellie.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Moorhouse. This was a literal dream come true, but not the scary bad kind. You can find me on Twitter at SubroteGifs, SubroteGifs. Like I said, I make something new every day, and if you want, a random gift made, I'll probably make it for you. And 70 to 80% of autistic or spectrum adults are unemployed or underemployed. So the Neurodiverse Workplace LLC is our company that we do personal one-on-one consulting, everything from resume practice to mock interviews or conflict resolution and communication skills. And we also do the other side where we do management training or large-scale corporate events, sliding scales, because we're here to try and help people. We found out a few years ago that we were both autistic, and that and being trans, everything suddenly made sense in my life. So if you're interested in the professional education of neurodivergent adults in a corporate environment, you can also check out our book, One Size Fits Nobody, about the importance of diversity in education, because one size fits nobody.
Thanks for that, Ellie. Really great to learn all that and learn that backstory. I appreciate you coming on. It's great having you here. Jamie, how about you?
Not sure how I'm going to follow that up, but Jim, thank you so much for having me on. I've been, wanting to do this for a long time, as you know. Great seeing you again in Vegas, obviously, and check our show out, The Divine Treasury, on the Trek Geeks Network, and we're going to hopefully be doing some new content soon, because I know it's been a while since we recorded.
Well, that's a great show, and that's everyone should check out some of those interviews. I love it. And Mike, obviously, great to have you finally on. I know I've been on Trek Legacy or Legacy Trek a couple of times, and always love talking to you guys.
Yeah, you can find us there. It's Trek Legacy on Twitter. Believe it or not, Emily and I do not really do Legacy Trek that much more anymore, because we took over Discovering Trek Prodigy on the Trek Geeks Network. So
that's right. Yeah.
When Prodigy resumes, you can check us out there. And then I also host the Picard version of Discovering Trek and Strange New Worlds. So when those two series resume, you'll have to listen to my voice once again.
Oh, no.
Lots of great content coming from all three guests tonight, and it was awesome to get you guys all on this show. So I'm really, really happy. First of many, hopefully. TrekRanks. Scheduling is always the hardest part of TrekRanks, so I'm really glad that this one worked out. Okay, thanks everyone again for engaging with us here on episode 143 of the TrekRanks podcast. This was a long one, but worth it. Just want to close by saying, as I always do, I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Alma-Rain, count to 4. Alma-Rain, count to 4. Alma-Rain, then 3 more. Alma-Rain, if you can see. Alma-Rain, you'll come with me. Come on, just say the rhyme.
Alma-Rain, then 3 more. Alma-Rain, if you can see. Alma-Rain, you'll come with me. Alma-Rain,
Alma-Rain, count to 4. Alma-Rain, then 3 more.
Alma-Rain, then 3 more. Alma-Rain, if you can see. Alma-Rain, you'll come with me.
Alma-Rain, you'll come with me.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
Commander, when all this is over, you'll find a case among my personal belongings. Something in there I want you to find.
What is it?
My obituary. I wrote it myself. After all, I couldn't leave such an important document to some stranger. Do me a favor and see that it's sent to the Daystrom Institute for publication, huh?
You have my word.
Oh, which reminds me, I didn't get a chance to update it before I left. Let the record state that he sacrificed himself on the altar of science.
10 seconds.
I'll be sure they got it.
I'm sure I can count on you.
5 seconds.
Keep your eye on the view screen, Commander. You'll never see anything like this again. Let there be light!